what you want, when you want it, where you want it. This is The Mesh.
Footcandle Films. Film news and reviews from two guys who really like movies.
This episode is brought to you by the Footcandle Film Society. For a schedule of upcoming screenings and membership information, visit the Society's website at www.footcandle.org.
Hello and welcome to Footcandle Films. This is the show here on themesh.tv where we have movie reviews, film discussion, and just plenty of hijinks, I'm sure, to ensue. Chris Fry, my man across the table here. How you doing, bud?
Doing good.
Good. I'm Alan Jackson. We're here to talk some films. We're here to talk some movies. We've got some good ones to talk about today, or at least some interesting ones to talk about. I'm not going to say good yet because we haven't gotten to our reviews, but we do have two films we're going to be reviewing today. First off, we're going to be reviewing the film Oblivion, starring Tom Cruise. And then we're also, a little bit later on, going to have the latest from Terrence Malick, To the Wonder. Beyond that, we're also going to have some movie news, and we're going to cap off the show with our typical staple, our online recommendations, films we think you ought to check out online if you haven't already. All of this on this episode of Footcandle Films. Chris, you ready to get started?
Let's do it.
All right. First off, our first review, the film of Oblivion, starring Tom Cruise and Morgan Freeman.
60 years ago, Earth was attacked. We won the war, but they destroyed half the planet. Everyone's been evacuated. Nothing human remains. We're here for drone repair with a mop-up crew.
2 more weeks, Jack, and we can finally leave and join the others. Don't take any chances.
I've been watching you, Jack. You're curious. What are you looking for in those books? Do they bring back old memories?
We have an unidentified impact.
Don't ask too many questions.
Seems the summer blockbuster season, I guess, has started already in April.
Yeah,
summer.
It gets earlier every year, doesn't it?
Yeah, just like, Halloween,
it's like celebrating
Thanksgiving,
Christmas. Right.
Yeah, they keep moving it back and back. Well, I'm fine. Bigger movies, better movies, that's cool. Last year's crop featured 2 sci-fi films, Total Recall and Prometheus.
Is that the only sci-fi films that
There
really
may
came
have
out?
been more.
The only big ones anyway.
Right,
Okay, gotcha.
Go with me because it's part of my analogy.
I see. Okay, 2. Yes.
Yes. So with Total Recall, Alan, you and I are both on record saying we'd rather not recall it, correct?
Yeah, didn't do much for me.
Okay. Prometheus, on the other hand, received praise from our podcast.
I thought it was fine. You really liked it.
I've got it ranked as one of my favorite films of 2012.
Yes.
Okay. With Oblivion, which is the second feature from Tron Legacy director Joseph Kosinski, we're told the story of Jack, one of the few remaining drone repairmen left on Earth after it has been ravaged by a war with aliens known as scavengers, or scavs, if you're hip to the lingo of 2077. So you got to be down with it.
Everything's shortened.
That's right.
They probably took the vowels out too.
Probably.
Yeah.
Rest of humanity, they've moved up to a orbiting space station satellite thing called the TET or whatever, while resources are being taken up into these big harvester things. And that's what Tom Cruise is like. Who's Jack? He's basically the guy who's supposed to help repair these things. So with Mr. Cruise's latest effort, Alan, where does it rank on your scale? Is it more towards the Total Recall end or on the Prometheus side? I guess for you, how do you fall?
No, and I can use that scale because I did think Prometheus was a much, much better effort than the Total Recall remake was. Even though I wasn't quite on either extreme on either of those films as I think you were. I think you were pretty down hated with Total Recall and
Yes.
loved Prometheus. Okay, so I was playing within the middle on those 2 from last year.
Okay.
Here's the thing with Oblivion, and I think you summed it up pretty good. And there's a lot more to the story than just the 1-2 line description, and we really can't get too deep into it.
I tried to skirt some issues, but
I will say, here's the thing about Oblivion. If Oblivion had come out in the 1980s, okay, as the story we saw in this film, if it had come out in the 80s, 20, 30 years ago, it would have been incredible. Unfortunately, it's come out after a lot of really good sci-fi films over the last several years, which I felt this one was very derivative of. That was my big issue with it, is that there was just a lot of great ideas that I feel like I've seen already. And I felt like in a way too, the way the film was set up, I found myself spending more time the first half of the film trying to go ahead and try to guess what the obviously twists are going to be instead of just relishing in the film like I probably should have been. So I think in a way, this is almost like it was almost a unfortunate product of people going in with expectations that, oh, there's going to be a twist. There's going to be all these things going on that you're going to learn about later in the film. And there's a lot of ideas and images in this film that are very, I felt like, borrowed, copied, or derivative of other great sci-fi films. So honestly, to come out of this, I'm very lukewarm on this film. I really love the look of the film. I love the story behind the film. I love the premise of the film.
Okay.
And I'm a Tom Cruise apologist. I think he's a good actor.
Man.
I think he's very committed to his roles. Now, this role he plays just like any other Tom Cruise role, but he's still committed to the role and he's passionate about it. But I'm very lukewarm because I could not find myself to enjoy it as much as I think I could have if it hadn't been for me spotting all of the references to every other sci-fi film I think has ever been made. And spending more time just trying to figure out what's going on as opposed to just enjoying the film on its own merits. That's me. I'm very much middle of the road on this one.
Interesting.
And the best way I can sum it up before I toss it over to you, I know you and I have been using letterboxd.com as a website to kind of track our films and film reviews. I intentionally have not put my Letterboxd review star rating up online because I knew you would see it and I didn't want you to know what my rating is. But I can go on record saying right now it's a solid 3-star film for me. Right in the middle. I don't love it, but I don't hate it.
Well, okay. Star ratings are kind of tough for me because I go back and forth. To boil it down, if I had to for Letterboxd, which I as well did not put my score on there because I didn't want you to see it.
Although I saw your score for To the Wonder already. That was
did
cheating.
you?
Yeah,
okay.
anyway, that's right.
We'll get to that. But for this, I would probably rank it 3.5. But I think my half doesn't fairly communicate how much more I apparently like it than you do.
So you did like this film?
Yes.
Okay,
the
good.
number one problem I had with the film was Tom Cruise. So
okay, all right.
If I had been able to copy and replace him, control and copy and replace with anyone else, anyone else.
But what is
I would have liked it.
Let's get into this for a second. But what is it about Tom Cruise that you don't like?
We're going to
go ahead.
that can?
Yeah,
okay.
go ahead. Do it.
Can is open. Okay. I'll specifically nail it down to this film. He is basically reliving his days of Top Gun. You say, how's that? Oh, there's shower scenes in this movie? More than one? Where he's like, oh, here I am. I'm Tom Cruise taking a shower. Okay. So you're like, all right, I'll try to forget that. Okay. Well, then you have not one, but at 2 and maybe 3, I lost count, motorcycle scenes where he's like, Top Gun with the wind going through his hair, which he looks ridiculous now doing that. Okay. So there's another Top Gun thing. And then, as if there wasn't already enough.
Are you talking about the sunglasses?
Oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
That would be another one. Okay, the aviator sunglasses, another Top Gun thing.
Sure.
Then all of that, and then there's some scenes with him flying around in this little contraption, and he's doing like this, Top Gun fighter pilot thing, like these little dogfight chases. I'm like, anyone else?
You would have been happy with anyone else.
Probably.
Wow.
And I just really don't like Tom Cruise. I'm done with it.
You're one of those guys. So
But it's not that I think he's a bad actor. I'm just tired of seeing him. It's like, oh, we need an action hero. Let's use Tom Cruise.
Okay.
And so
here's my take on that. Yes, he does play on a lot of the same tropes in many of his roles. The times I admire Tom Cruise the most is when he goes as far away as possible from his typical stereotype. When he really cut loose and had fun with Tropic Thunder, I thought that was great.
Okay.
Magnolia. Even though he's playing.
Those were a while ago, though.
Oh, I know, but he played a form of his type. But he spun it on its head, and I thought that was a great performance. Yes, he is in Top Gun. Mission Impossible mode here. Absolutely, I get it.
And I just recently saw Ghost Protocol, and you and I are like night and day on that movie. I thought that was.
No, I didn't
boring.
love Ghost Protocol.
Okay, you did. Okay.
No, I love number 3.
Okay.
Number 4, I actually thought was a big letdown.
Okay, so, good. Yeah, we're on the same page.
Yeah,
with that,
I thought it had some merits, but it was not a good film overall. I was excited about it when it came out. I think that's where you heard my enthusiasm, but in the actual world of seeing it, I was very let down.
Okay.
So I'm okay with Tom Cruise. It's like an old friend from high school where you kind of know how he's going to be, and you just kind of gotten to the point where you're okay with that, and you kind of feel like you have to apologize to everybody else around him, like, oh, I'm sorry for this guy. He's just kind of that way. That's the way I feel about Tom Cruise. I'm a Tom Cruise apologist. I think for the most part, the guy shows a lot of passion and energy towards every role he takes on. even though they are pretty much the same. And there's even one shot in this film. I can't tell you.
Is it Top Gun related?
No,
okay.
But there's one shot in this film towards the very end of the film.
Okay.
Very spoiler heavy, so I'm not going to say what it is, but there is a scene where he passes by a wall of a whole bunch of something. And you've got to wonder, it's probably one of the most narcissistic dreams that actor can have about himself.
Yeah.
Let me just leave it at that. And maybe we'll get to it in a spoiler edition afterwards. All right.
Huh.
So Chris, it sounds like you liked it except for Tom Cruise.
Yeah.
If it had been anybody else but Tom Cruise in that role, your rating goes up.
Well, and I think too, you and I kind of differ. This is another thing that people may pick up on. I don't like watching trailers. I don't go seek them out.
Yeah.
And
I love them.
And, well, it's not that I don't like them, but I'd usually prefer not to see them because I'd rather see the movie.
You like to go in unvarnished.
Right.
Mm-hmm. Sure.
Because I'm afraid they're going to give something away. I saw the preview for this movie numerous times in the theater. And despite the fact it had Tom Cruise in it, I was like, wow, that movie looks really cool. I think I'm going to like it. I love sci-fi movies. But it has Tom Cruise in it. And I think they gave away something pretty crucial in the trailer.
They gave away a lot in the trailer.
That being said... So I think there again, my expectations were kind of low going into this. I'm not a real big Tom Cruise fan. I think they kind of gave away a big secret in the trailer. I go in, I pretty much guessed something that was going on, but there was the way they handled it. There was still enough other things going on that didn't ruin the movie for me.
There were still enough surprises, even with 10 minutes left in the film, to keep you to keep you interested in the story. I agree with that.
And other than the Tom Cruise was not as bad as I felt he was in Mission Impossible Ghost Protocol, but the Top Gun stuff really got on my nerves. It like totally pulled me out of the movie.
All right. Okay. I forgave some of that. The story itself, yes. And again, we're not going to spoil it for anybody. The story, if you were to write out the story and explain it to somebody, it is a cool story.
Yeah.
There are elements that are heavily copied from a lot of different films. I mean, honestly, I even played a little bit of a game with some of the friends I went to go see it with where we rattled off every sci-fi film reference that this film made. Well, there's a lot of them.
Is that our references and homages not okay? Supposedly the director's gone on record that this is an homage to sci-fi films of the 70s.
And I get that. If this had been a sci-fi film of the 70s, we probably would have had Charlton Heston playing this role, and it would have worked just as fine.
Right.
Some of them were a little beat you over the head with it. Okay, it's just some of them were a little over the top. Honestly, too, Wall-E, a film from a few years ago, Pixar film, a lot of heavy influences there. So it's not even just 70s films. There's like 80s, 90s, even recent sci-fi films I think I borrowed pretty heavily from.
Sure.
I'm happy with homages, and I think, there again, if the guy was obviously inspired by some great sci-fi films, he took good elements from good films and made a pretty decent film himself. I'm okay with that. And overall, the story was fine. It's just, I did find myself spending more time thinking about trying to predict the story because I felt like I've seen some of these elements before. I've seen some of these plot twists before, and it was a little distracting to find myself spending more time thinking about those than just enjoying the story for what it was.
Got you.
Morgan Freeman, I thought, was really distracting in his role as well. I think it's because I would rather seen an unknown or somebody lesser known in that role than him.
But he didn't have a lot of screen time.
He didn't, which thankfully it was a much smaller role than probably the trailers or anything would let you believe.
True.
And for that I'm thankful, but I didn't like. He just seems to be everywhere right now. And that was just kind of like Tom Cruise was distracting for you. Morgan Freeman was distracting for me in that role.
Got you.
And then I can't talk about my other dislike, which was kind of a big plot hole, kind of one of those things where if I started thinking about it afterwards, the whole film started to unravel.
Wow.
I'm not going to go into it now, but there is one.
Okay.
And I guess my only recommendation for people would be don't try to overanalyze the film too awful much when you're done. Because I did, and I do think it hurt my enjoyment a little bit in hindsight. So, for whatever that's worth. I will say, though, the look of the film, the whole world that's been created, I thought was great. The technology you use, I thought was it wasn't over the top. It wasn't where you just felt like that's ridiculous. I mean, all of this stuff seemed pretty grounded, for a future society and a future world that we could have. And I love the fact, too, that, again, without getting into spoilers, there's a backstory to this film that is told, but it's not shown.
Right.
Which I thought was kind of nice. We didn't have this whole flashback sequence, which I kept expecting.
Right.
Instead, we're told the story through some of the other characters in the film about what happened on Earth before this film. Mm-hmm. And I liked that we were told and not felt this need to show. So we were letting our imaginations go with it, just like the characters were.
Got you.
So anything else on the film you thought worked or didn't work for you?
I will say two of the positives I thought were Olga Kurylenko, who played Julia, and Andrea Riseborough, who played Vika or Victoria. Those two I really liked.
They were good.
And they were... We'll have more on Miss Olga later.
Yes, she's in our second review as well.
But they were new faces to me, and I liked both of them. And I would actually, that was the strong acting in the film, were those two. And as far as you had commented on the look, that's another thing I really appreciated about the film too, is I thought it looked great. And I guess from a guy who had done Tron Legacy, the director, not that surprising. You know, he's got look down, and I thought this story was much better than Tron Legacy. So
the story was much better. Absolutely. I agree with you there. Now, I was happy to see, because Tron Legacy I liked, but it was more of a nostalgic thing for me.
Sure.
It was more of a,
same here.
Hey, it's cool as Tron and it looks awesome. But the story was pretty weak. Right. So it was nice to see that this guy could take a good story and actually apply the same visual style to it and have a really good looking film.
Yeah, so he could be, I would be interested to see his next film. You know, I'm going to be on board whenever he comes out with something else, which I think is a sequel to Tron Legacy, if I'm not mistaken.
He is working on that. And I don't know if he's exactly tagged to be the director of it or if he's just going to be helping write or produce it or something.
Gotcha.
Again, I'm happy to see another Tron film because I generally liked the last one. I didn't love it, but I thought it was okay.
I think
so.
You'd mentioned a plot hole. We'll have to discuss that off mic because I'd like to know what that is. And I saw this late at night, so I probably wasn't picking up on some plot holes. I just let them kind of go right over me. But I will say one of the things that, without spoiling the ending, I'm going to try to dance around this, but this movie could have been easily a 4-star or maybe even a 5-star, despite the fact it had Tom Cruise. There's a confrontation that takes place in the latter part of the film, you know, towards the end. There's a confrontation, and it involves Tom Cruise, you know, Jack. And he's kind of been building up to this kind of like speech that he gives about things that are important. Let's just say that. And he gives it, and then something happens. And then at the final close of the film, you know, the ending of the film, to me, it's kind of undercut because of something that happens. And if the undercut moment had not have happened, I think this would have been much more amazing. But it would have been less Hollywood and probably less Tom Cruise.
Well, and my plot hole does that
make sense?
Yeah, and my big plot hole does have a little bit, actually two big plot holes. One of them has to do with that little coda ending at the end too. I think there's a problem with that.
Gotcha.
Overall, it sounds like we're both pleased with the film. You probably a little more than me, but overall, I think we both can recommend it as a good sci-fi film.
Yeah, good and a good film to see in the theaters too. I think
definitely so. Probably much better than you would at a home viewing or something.
Sure,
so, good. So that's Oblivion. It just came out in the last week, so it should still be out by the time you're listening to this. Sounds like it's worth a listen. I say go in, just turn your brain off a little bit on some of the plot points. Don't try to overthink the story too awful much, but you can enjoy it as long as you don't mind a lot of Top Gun references and old sci-fi film references all throughout. All right, well, let's go on to our second review then. Okay with you, Chris? We'll keep on trucking?
Sure.
Great. Our next review, the latest from visionary director Terrence Malick. It's called To the Wonder.
Love is not only a feeling. Love is a duty. To commit yourself is to run the risk of failure, the risk of betrayal. But the man who makes a mistake can repent. You fear your love has died. It perhaps is waiting to be transformed into something higher.
All right, Chris, I would encourage everybody listening to this to go back in time and play one of our old episodes where we discussed the film The Tree of Life.
Okay.
I'm on record as saying Tree of Life was my favorite film. Was it 2011? That was the year it came out. Not last year, year before.
So, right.
2011, favorite film, Tree of Life. I loved it. I had not been a Terrence Malick fan as much before. I'd seen a couple of his films, but didn't really think too much about it. Tree of Life, though, man, knocked me over, and I loved it. I love the fact that he turned every image I saw on the screen into almost a piece of art. And I saw some great performances by some great people in the film as well. The story just moved me. It left me with a lot of questions, but it was good. That was good questions to have. I really, really enjoyed this. So I was really excited when I heard To the Wonder was coming out. It kind of snuck on the radar a little bit. I mean, it went straight to iTunes and online. So we actually watched this. I watched it at home last night.
I couldn't believe it was already coming out. It's like,
so starring Olga Kurylenko, who we also talked about from Oblivion, Rachel McAdams, Javier Bardem, and a 6-foot-tall piece of driftwood wearing an Abercrombie wool jacket that just kept popping into the frame occasionally. Nice. I don't know who this driftwood piece is, but maybe he's got a future. I don't know.
He was nominated for Argo, wasn't he?
We'll get to that in a minute. Yes, that would be Mr. Ben Affleck, the said piece of driftwood. We'll comment on that here in a little bit. But Chris, this film, it's hard to describe. Let me try my best. To me, it was a visual poem about love and faith. That's about the best way I can sum it up.
So that's what it was about.
Yeah, I think so. And I do say the word visual because there's very little spoken dialogue. A lot of heavy narration and voiceover. Very few scenes where people are actually speaking on the camera. I mean, I could probably count them on one or two hands.
And if they are speaking, can you hear what they're saying?
No, and I don't think that's the point. I really think it was truly a visual poem about love and faith.
Sure.
And not only just love and faith, but to quote King from The Simpsons, a lot of twirling from our main character, Miss Olga Kurylenko.
Yes.
So, Chris, let me just ask you. I watched this at 10 o'clock last night. I stayed awake the whole time, even with a beer in hand.
Oh, wow.
I stayed awake.
Alcohol was involved. Okay.
Yes, it was. So my question to you...
Did you drink every time she twirled?
No, I couldn't drink that much. My question to you, did you get swirled up in this story of love that Malik was weaving? Or did you stare at the screen vacantly, much like Ben Affleck did, at everything going around him on the film?
Fair question. I'll say... When you mentioned this in a news segment a couple of episodes back that this film was coming out, I was like, what? He's already got another movie? You're crazy. And I was like, that sounds actually kind of bad. Okay. And it's actually coming out on iTunes. Terrence Malick is releasing something on iTunes as well. It's like,
before it goes to big theaters.
It's kind of like, warning signs going off or flashing lights. I was surprised that with the running time of 112 minutes, that it actually kept me interested.
Okay.
I liked the film, but I found it immensely frustrating that I felt like it was like a Seinfeld episode, except it wasn't funny, and it was a movie about nothing. And it was a lot of pretty images, a lot of good, but you expect that from a Terrence Malick movie. And his cinematographer, which I forget the guy's name, but he's obviously really talented. They work well together. Awesome. So I enjoyed the imagery, and I guess the imagery was good enough to carry me for 2 hours, even though I was just like, what? Like, what is this movie about? Okay, yeah, there's a priest, but he actually, Javier Bardem, who is, he speaks another language, he's Spanish, sort of. I could actually, but he would speak English in the movie. He actually got more speaking than Affleck or Kurylenko did.
As far as on screen, talking in a dialogue.
And I was like, the other stuff, it was frustrating me. It was like muttering. And it wasn't even like artistically done muttering. It was just irritating. The stuff the fragments of conversation. It was just, I didn't find it artistic. I just found it frustrating.
Okay.
And, but like I say, with the visuals, it somehow kept me in the movie. And that was really surprising because usually just visuals is not going to keep me there for 2 hours. So what are your thoughts?
I'm exactly the same page. I ultimately am going to give this film a pass and a generally acceptable rating from me.
Generally acceptable.
And it's mainly because of the visuals. If this had not been such a strikingly beautiful, beautiful film, I would have turned it off after 30 minutes.
Yeah.
The fact is, for 2 hours, I was watching visual poetry on the film on the screen. It was beautiful. Now, the minute I tried to actually pay attention to what the actors were doing or saying, I got frustrated as well. I almost think it would have worked better as a pure silent film. It should have been a scored film with no dialogue.
Yeah. It might as well have been a silent film, actually.
Let the visuals tell the story and let us make up our own interpretation of what the film's trying to say or what the story is behind it. I would have actually found that to be even challenging, but kind of enjoyable in a way to make up our own dialogue for people based on the music and the images and the people that we're seeing interact.
Well, and I agree with that. And I think to me, the thing that was always in the back of my mind was that this felt like nothing but outtakes from the Tree of Life.
Yeah,
and because Tree of Life, obviously, we discussed that film, the themes about the creation, what does life mean, all these like struggles that people are having. This film has struggles too, but it's on such a smaller scale. But it seems like it's leftovers, and so it was unsatisfying. I will say though, Javier Bardem, I really enjoyed him in this film, and I thought he was really good. And to see him play this priest that was struggling with faith, and I just thought it was really good, especially because I'm used to seeing him as like Anton Chigurh.
I thought he was good too. It just felt like it was in a whole different movie.
True.
I mean, and I think in a way,
like Tree of Life. But
this is let me kind of shift over to my dislikes, because I do want to state, beautiful film, and I think the visuals did make this film work ultimately for me for enough to say people that are fans of Terrence Malick ought to check it out. And if you're a fan of just seeing some really, really great imagery, great cinematography, absolutely, it's a good film. The problem starts to come when you start to break down everything else going on. And I think I actually felt like at times I was almost like watching somebody making a parody of a Terrence Malick film.
I can see that.
Because some of the lines being spoken in the voiceover
that you could actually hear,
were actually just corny and ridiculous at times, to the point where I actually thought, really? Did they really just have that character say that line or say these phrases and words? And
were they phrases from Mr. Affleck or from...
No. Luckily, Mr. Affleck didn't have a whole lot to say in the whole film. It was mostly from Rachel McAdams' part in the middle. I thought hers was probably the weakest part of the whole film. She was probably the worst actress on the film, and her lines delivered in voiceover were just over the top corny. It was almost what you would expect a teenage high school girl to like write in a love letter to like a boy that they're fawning over. And it just was over the top and didn't work for me.
Okay.
So I felt parts of it were just, over the top Malick. It's almost like Malick almost went a little too far with his idiosyncrasies of, I want to show people walking through the fields, and I want to show people twirling, and I want to show all this stuff. It was too much at times.
Yeah.
But there again, the visuals outweighed it. I just didn't like the characters.
I didn't know them enough to know that I liked them or disliked.
I just there wasn't enough to grab a hold of. Am I supposed to like Ben Affleck's character? Well, not from what I saw, not really.
Well, and I agree, and I didn't like his character, but I didn't blame it on him. I blamed it on the writing. I blamed because it was like, I want to know more about him. I want to know why he's struggling with having this relationship, but the director's not going to let me know that. And I'd like to know why. And her, I dislike, she was twirling all the time.
Olga Kurylenko. Mm-hmm.
And she was like the manic pixie girl, happy one moment, depressing. And I'm like, I thought she was just a bad actress, but then again, the director, I didn't feel like gave her enough material so that she could show growth or change. But then I was confirmed that when I saw her in Oblivion, I was like, oh, okay, no, she's not just this happy actress. Manic pixie girl.
I think she's good.
I think she is too.
I think she actually was really good in this film. I enjoyed watching her.
She could be.
I just didn't understand who she was. And that's not her fault. I think I could just imagine on set, Terrence Malick saying, you know what, go out in this field and just be playful and be silly.
Right.
And that's what she did for probably half an hour while they filmed her. And she did that job great, but I don't think there was ever any more direction as to why you are this way.
Right.
And we definitely never got that at all.
No.
I enjoyed watching her. She was probably the person on screen, her and Javier Bardem, I enjoyed watching the most. But I still wish I knew more about them.
I got you.
Bardem's part as the priest was interesting, probably the most interesting part of the film to me, him going and visiting some of the people that are down on their luck and having some tough times. The scene in the prison was my absolute favorite scene, where he's going and paying visits to some of the people in the prison. Was my absolute favorite scene of the film. But I do feel like that was in a whole different film.
Well, and what's interesting about that, now I'm thinking about it, the visuals in those scenes were still good, but actually that hinged more on the acting and the story in those scenes, as opposed to the other stuff. Yeah, it was just visual and there wasn't a lot there. So it's interesting that it was like two different films kind of mushed together. It was leftovers from Tree of Life, then mushed together.
It was almost only two or three scenes where the two storylines intersected.
Oh, yeah.
Very few.
Very few.
And, but again, Bardem's part as the priest and the acting that was involved there was, to me, the highlight of the film. And I just wish I could have seen a whole film exploring his character and what he was trying to do, and less of the romance that we had with these other three. And then Ben Affleck. Good. good God, what's going on? And again, I could say that maybe it's Terrence Malick that just didn't give him a whole lot to do. But again, we've got another performance just like Argo. I feel like this guy is just standing there, blank look on his face, and he thinks that's acting. It's like, I'm supposed to be tormented, so I have to look this way and I'm tormented. And for those of you who can't see at home, I'm standing here with just a blank look on my face. That's me tormented. Now I'm supposed to be curious. I'm going to play the same look. It was grating on my nerves to watch him in this film. Luckily, he didn't have that many lines.
No.
He didn't even have that much voiceover. He had very little compared to the two women.
Yeah.
And I don't know. It just bugged me. It really bugged me. So, if I could, that's why I say if the whole thing could have been a silent film, no dialogue, just give me the beautiful music and the beautiful imagery and let me watch these characters interact without even knowing what they're saying. Let me put in my own words. Let me make up my own scenarios from what you're showing me. I would have enjoyed that probably more than what I got.
I think you and I have two directions that Malick can go that would be like really good for him to do and would make something different. So he's not repeating himself or not kind of making a knockoff Malick film, even though he's Terrence Malick. You're suggesting the silent idea. Love that idea. Him make a silent film. I'm going to suggest that I would like to see Terrence Malick and his cinematographer do a horror movie. Here's why. Okay. The Rachel McAdams section, when she and Affleck part ways, there's some sequences that take place, and he's really good with light inside a house.
Yes. Okay.
And the shadows and the way they light up and some tracking shots inside.
Yeah, it was good.
Amazing. And I was like, wow, what if this guy made a horror movie? It didn't have to be a blood and guts horror movie, but just something taking place
creepy
in a house or something. I think it would be amazing.
All right. So what? I agree. I think that would be great. Let me ask you, and I'm not worried about spoiling. This is not a film that spoils.
I don't think.
No, there's nothing spoiler about this film at all. We are following the main character, which we never learn their names, which I kind of figured that's kind of a Malick thing as well. Ben Affleck meets a woman overseas. She comes back to America with him. They're together for a while. She has a daughter with her. Then she leaves to go back.
Right.
Which we're not quite sure exactly what transpired as much. We have a little hint of some things, her not feeling comfortable in America.
And maybe, the daughter really doesn't
the daughter hated it too. They go back. Then eventually she comes back to America by herself without her daughter. But in the meantime, we have Ben Affleck cavorting along with Rachel McAdams for a little bit, who's, I guess, somebody from his childhood that he's reconnecting with. But then Olga comes back from the other country, and now they're together. Then they have some problems again. It's a little back and forth on things.
Yes.
The scene with the house that you were alluding to, where they're walking through the house and it's a very dark house and there's almost like flashlight beams of light hitting different old toys and antiques in there. What did you make of that scene? There again, I'm not worried about spoiling anything. This is a visual film, not a plot-driven film. So what was going on there? What did you take from that?
I'm not sure what I took from it.
I just want to make sure I wasn't the only one. So.
No, it was kind of odd, and I thought it was... And, dialogue, it's just like, give me some dialogue and tell me exactly what's going on. I think that was at the point where they were kind of breaking apart, and I didn't know if it was something... Did she have someone who passed away, and she was looking at her father's house or something and going through his old stuff?
There was one line that she says in a voiceover about, I thought I knew you. And then I'm learning more about you or something. And that's when she's exploring the house. I'm wondering if the house is something from his childhood or something from his background where she's kind of getting to know him through that. I didn't know. I want to make sure I didn't miss anything on that. That one kind of threw me for a loop too.
Okay. See if you caught on this. There again, really can't spoil this movie. It's all about imagery. Yep. We can't spoil that on an audio podcast. Did you pick up, because I read some stuff I was reading online to prepare for this, did you pick up that supposedly the reason Affleck's character and the McAdams character drifted apart was because she revealed that she was having financial trouble, and that's why something happened and he decided to veer away from her?
No.
Okay. I was like, what? I didn't catch that at all.
No, I mean, towards the end, obviously, she has an affair. Again, not going to spoil anything on him, even though, she has an affair on him, and that kind of causes that last division between them. But I think there's tensions going all throughout the film. they're very watching them. It's an emotional roller coaster
who
film.
has
Racially.
McAdams or
Oh no! Oh, you were saying McAdams had the financial difficulties.
Yes.
No,
yes.
I didn't know anything about that.
Okay, yeah, I didn't catch that either.
Okay, all right.
So maybe that's the house thing, although I don't think it is.
Possibly, I
But
don't
no,
know.
you're saying the affair with Kurylenko. Okay.
Yeah, and
Right,
the
right,
affair
right.
at the end was probably the most clear-cut thing
Sure.
for me in the relationship.
Yes.
It's like, all right, she
Got
did
it.
had this
I know why this
affair.
isn't working out.
Yeah, exactly. I get it. And
Yeah.
then, of course, it has its closure at the end.
Sure.
It's a challenging film, very frustrating. I think you summed it up right. And if it wasn't for it being so beautiful to watch, I would have lost my patience with it pretty early on.
Sure.
This is probably Terrence Malick at his most Malicky. And I don't know if that's necessarily a good thing. But I can say to people that if you're looking forward to a visual feast and you're willing to just not try to pay attention to what's being said or why it's being said, just enjoy it for the visuals. Yeah, it's beautiful. It is a beautiful, beautiful film. Just, man, you just gotta be willing not to let it get you frustrated, I guess is the way to view it, right?
Or if you like twirling women.
Twirling women, man, this film is all for you. So really, after watching this, I actually had to look up the Simpsons episode with Kang and Kodos being dressed up as Bill Clinton doing the twirling. Because that's all I kept thinking. Every time I saw her out in the field just spinning and twirling around, it's just,
Yeah.
it was a little much.
It was.
Okay, so we're both mixed on the film. Ultimately, we're going to lean on the side of saying, there's some value to it, to check it out, and it's worthwhile. But, man, you got to go in with a lot of understanding of what to let go of. So,
Sure.
All right. We're going to take a quick break. When we come back, we're going to hit some quick movie news, and end up with our recommendations for online viewing. Stay tuned for Footcandle Films.
We'll get back to your show in a moment. Just a reminder, you're listening to The Mesh, an online media network of shows and programs ranging from business to arts, sports to entertainment, music to community. All programs are available on the website as well as through iTunes and YouTube. Find out more at themesh.tv and give us feedback on what you like. And now, as promised, back to your show.
Welcome back to Footcandle Films here on themesh.tv. I would encourage you, just like I referenced in our review of To the Wonder, feel free to go back and listen to some of our old shows. Maybe there's a film that you missed in the theater that's out on DVD or online now that we had a review of. Go back and check our archives and see what we had to say about the film. And you know what? We even love it if you have some opinions contrary to our own that you want to share, even on an old film that we reviewed a year or two ago. Go online, drop us a note, let us know. We'd love to hear from you. We are always available for constructive criticism and feedback.
Gotten some feedback. Apparently, I'm one of the few people that didn't like Les Mis. People, come on, support me.
You really got a lot of people
Tell me that
bad-mouthing
I'm
you
not
for
the only
Les
one
Mis.
that didn't like Les Mis.
Okay, so I still haven't seen it, so I can't back you up
Okay.
on it. I'm sorry. I'll try to do that at some point. Well, we just finished our reviews of To the Wonder and Oblivion, and now we're going to move on to some movie news. I got 3 pieces of news. I always try to keep Chris on his toes, keep him
Excellent.
up to date with what's going on in the film world. And with a couple of these, I think you're going to find very interesting. Third one, maybe not so much. Werner Herzog, someone we like to talk about here on this podcast. We were fans of some of his recent films. I think even going back to one of our very early, as a film society, films that we saw was Rescue Dawn with Christian Bale.
Yeah.
So we've been a fan of his for a while. You talked about Cave of Forgotten Dreams,
Yes.
I think even maybe last episode or 2 episodes ago as a recommendation.
2 episodes ago,
Yeah.
sure. Mm-hmm.
So right now, what I understand he's working on is a biopic called Queen of the Desert that he's supposedly trying to get James Franco to get involved with.
Really?
He supposedly already has Naomi Watts locked in. This is a biopic about Gertrude Bell. Do you know anything about Gertrude Bell?
No.
Well,
Unfortunate first name there. Gertrude.
Sounds like for the next few years, you're going to probably hear a lot more about her because Ridley Scott is also working on a biopic about her with Angelina Jolie. Now, they're both in early development. We don't know which one's going to come out on top. But we got 2 biopics about this woman, Gertrude Bell. Let me tell you who she is. She is an English writer, traveler, political officer, administrator, archaeologist, and spy who explored, mapped, and became highly influential to British imperial policy making due to her skill and contacts, built up through her extensive travels in Greater Syria, Mesopotamia, Asia Minor, and Arabia. Along with T.E. Lawrence, Bell helped establish the, Hashemites in what is today Jordan as well as Iraq. So this is back in the late 1800s, early 1900s.
So this is Lawrence of Arabia territory.
Oh, yeah.
T. Lawrence.
She was a very influential individual during a lot of that time to the British imperial policy making. And again, I know next to nothing about her, but supposedly Naomi Watts is already locked in to play her in the Herzog version.
Gotcha.
Robert Pattinson from Twilight fame is also involved.
In the Herzog version?
Mm-hmm. And now he's trying to get James Franco involved as well. Ridley Scott has got the other version with Angelina Jolie. So be interesting to see where they go. But Herzog tackling another biopic. I don't think he's done one since Rescue Dawn.
I don't believe so. He's done documentaries.
Sure,
but not
right. Yeah. So that could be fun, could be interesting. But I guess it's just more than interesting to me that it seems like Hollywood always tries to lock on to a certain topic or certain subject, and they've got to develop multiple projects along the same
like the multiple
one.
Steve Jobs movies.
That's right. Hercules is another big one right now. Supposedly there's 2 or 3 Hercules movies being made at the same time. So it's just kind of interesting to see how that all happens. I think one studio gets wind of what another studio is doing. It's like, oh, we got to fast track a similar
then you
project.
Had Lincoln and Lincoln Vampire Hunter.
Well, yes, absolutely. I'm sure those are competing. And, even some others. I mean, think about the one that's out now that Olympus Has Fallen, attacking the White House, kind of a diehard in the White House. There's one called White House Down coming out in a few more months. That's
White House Down.
Yeah,
White House Down.
Very similar. So it's just interesting how Hollywood works.
I will say, though, what's specifically interesting to me is that it's 2 really big direct. Normally it's like you have, a Ridley Scott, and then you'll have somebody that's not as well known, and they kind of get him to kind of do like a copycat movie or something to kind of, but this is 2 big directors.
Well, they're both in very early development. So it's very possible one of them may say, I'm done. I don't want to deal with it. Herzog's doing it, or Ridley Scott's doing it. I don't want to compete. But it's just, I was just reading up on it because I was curious when I saw Herzog's next project and did a little checking in and found out this is what was going on.
Question.
Yeah.
Who would you rather blink? In other words, who would you rather say, okay, I'm walking away? Which person would you most be interested to see this film from? If only one can do it.
The idea of Ridley Scott doing this biopic does not excite me at all.
Okay.
Ridley Scott, I get excited when it's a visual sci-fi adventure something. Okay. This being a biopic that sounds pretty cut and dry, I'd rather see Herzog's take on it.
I agree.
Yeah, I'd rather
for
see
all the same reasons.
I'd rather see something interesting.
Sure.
I'm afraid Ridley Scott could play the typical big sweeping epic biopic, and I'm not really that interested in that.
Right.
So, all right. So moving on, Tom Hiddleston.
Okay.
Here's a guy,
Loki.
for those of you, Loki from Thor and the Avengers. He was also Midnight in Paris. He played F. Scott Fitzgerald, I believe.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
The Deep Blue Sea, which I never saw, but I heard really good things about.
I've seen it.
Yeah. He was also in War Horse, which I never saw War Horse either. But
didn't either.
Anyway, he is in the new Jim Jarmusch film called Only Lovers Left Alive. And he plays a vampire, an underground musician vampire. Plays against Tilda Swinton and Maya Wasikowska.
Okay.
So sounds pretty interesting. Are you a Jarmusch fan?
I am. I have not seen his most recent one because it didn't get a lot of good reviews and it didn't play anywhere near here. But I like a lot of his earlier stuff. I'm kind of more of a fan of. But he's got, Broken Flowers with
I
Bill
really
Murray,
like Broken Flowers. I
Dead
thought that
Man
was
with
a
Johnny
good
Depp. He's got an interesting visual style. Coffee and Cigarettes, which had like little vignettes, of which Jack White was actually in one of them. He's got an interesting visual style. A lot of it just depends on what kind of story he's telling.
Well, the fact that he's got 3, I think, very, very talented actors in this with Hiddleston, Swinton, and Wasikowska. To me, those are 3 good ones.
And him doing a vampire movie, be like, okay, I'll see his take on that.
Basically, he's an underground musician vampire.
Okay.
And has a relationship with Tilda Swinton, and Tilda Swinton's little sister, Maya Wasikowska, gets in the middle and disrupts it to some degree.
Okay.
But listen to this with Tom Hiddleston. Tell me if this is not a guy that has just got some big things coming on the horizon.
Okay.
He's already in the Thor sequel that comes out later this year, obviously.
Okay.
He may have a role in the next Avengers film. Who knows? He's in the Muppets sequel, which is called The Muppets ... again.
Nice.
Which I think is kind of funny.
I like that.
Yeah. He's supposedly got a role in that.
I didn't know that they had agreed to do one, but okay. It's
The Muppets
made so much money.
again.
That's awesome.
He is rumored to be the lead in the remake of The Crow.
Oh. I don't know if that's going to be good for him or not.
I don't know.
But
getting him into a lead role in a franchise like that, I don't know how that's going to work out. So anyway, I think this is a guy. He's got a lot of big projects on the horizon, but I always like to see when guys who strike it big with the Avengers and kind of get known for that kind of big role turn right around and do a Jarmusch film and other things. That to me is good. That's a kind of a good sign of a good actor. I'm very anxious to see what the future holds for Mr. Hiddleston. So
cool.
Now going from Jarmusch and Herzog, I mean, naturally the third director we have to talk about in this trilogy, Michael Bay. So here we go. Michael Bay's got a film coming out, I think actually this weekend, called Pain and Gain.
Yes.
Have you seen anything about it?
You actually mentioned something to me about it, and I watched the Red Band, Not Safe for Work trailer. Yeah. It was mildly amusing.
All right. So this is a film with The Rock and Mark Wahlberg, and they play steroids using, from what I understand, bodybuilders who decide, you know what, they're sick of their life and it's time to stick it to the man. They deserve more out of life, so they go on a little bit of a crime spree and kidnapping a guy and trying to extort his money. Supposedly all based on a true story.
Yeah.
So I admit, from the trailers and everything I've read and seen so far, this could be Michael Bay's opus. This could be his epic. And that's not saying much, but this could be the defining Michael Bay film.
Not to you and I, it's not saying much.
No, it's not saying
to
much.
other people, he's got a lot of fans. So
here's what I got curious about. As I started reading about this, I'm like, we talk about Michael Bay from time to time as a director, and, we kind of bash on him a little bit, but I'm curious, how many of Michael Bay's films has Chris Fry actually seen? So here's the list. Tell me if you've seen them or not.
Okay.
Bad Boys.
No.
The Rock.
Nope.
Armageddon.
Unfortunately, yes.
I know you've seen Armageddon because we've had
I think that may be what I'm basing my whole knowledge of him off.
All right. So we got Armageddon. So you're 1 for 3 so far.
Yeah.
Pearl Harbor.
No.
Bad Boys 2.
Nope.
The Island.
I did see that.
Okay.
Only because Ewan McGregor was in it.
All right.
But
So
yes,
you're 2 out of 1, 2, 3, 4. 2 of 6.
Okay.
You've seen 1/3 of his body of work so far. Transformers.
I did see that.
Transformers 2.
No.
Transformers 3.
No.
Okay, you are batting exactly 30%. You've seen 30% of Michael Bay's filmography at this point. Is that enough to base a complete decision on a director at that point? Because I take it from your comments, you did not like Armageddon.
No, I did.
And you did not like Transformers. Did you like the Island?
It was okay. It wasn't the direction that was the problem with it. It was just...
I will say The Island, of all the films I've seen of his, is my favorite.
Yeah, I would probably say
because it at least had a high concept to it, and I think Ewan McGregor was pretty good in it. I thought it was okay.
I would agree, and I think that's why I think you can definitely form an opinion or a stereotype of what is a stereotypical Michael Bay film, and that's pretty much all he's ever done: explosions and things like that. From what I saw in the trailer, to me, this looks like a Coen Brothers movie. Kind of looks like Burn After Reading.
Yes, that's exactly the one I thought of as well.
And
like
so,
kind of a dim-witted crime, criminals trying to pull something over what they perceive as an injustice in the world or something.
And hopefully it'll be more successful than the Coen Brothers, The Lady Killers, which was also dim-witted crime. But it's like that's what it looks like to me, and I'm actually interested in seeing it because even though I can't tell you a movie that I liked Dwayne Johnson, The Rock in, I mean, he was interesting in Southland Tales, but I think he's got some acting ability as Mark Wahlberg, and I think together they'd make an interesting pair. And so I think there's something there.
Well, now, I will say the reviews, for the most part, have been pretty good so far.
Oh, yeah? Okay.
Yeah, so I'm curious. I think going in, seeing a film that is a Michael Bay film, it almost seems like the prototypical Michael Bay film.
Because there are explosions.
Has a little more going for it than trying to take on a big franchise or dumbing down a high concept film.
Gotcha.
Like I thought The Island was good in the first half. The second half, it became a big Michael Bay explosion film.
Gotcha.
So anyway, I'm curious. I will hold out judgment till I see it, but right now I'm curious. This could be the one Michael Bay film that I'm somewhat looking forward to. Because I can look back through this list, and I did not look forward to any of these films when they were released.
Gotcha.
Okay. So that's our news. Like I said, 2 directors of one caliber, and then we had to throw a Michael Bay story in there just to balance it out a little bit.
That's right.
So, yeah. So that's our news for this episode. Now we're going to move on to the final segment where we come up with our one recommendation of a film that you can check out now online through some online service of some sort. One that we think you might have missed and you might want to check out if you have the chance. Chris, you want to go first and tell me what your recommendation of the episode is?
Absolutely. Alan, have you been wondering what Mr. Keanu Reeves has been up to? Have you
Every day. I mean, actually, my wife and I talk about that at breakfast every morning. It's
When's another Matrix movie coming
what's
out?
Keanu up to? Yeah, all right.
Right. Well,
are you going to answer it for me?
I am.
Okay.
Or at least what he was up to. Now I don't know what he's doing today.
Okay.
But previously.
We don't have a Keanu Reeves watch every day to see what
he doesn't return
doing.
my calls. I don't know.
Got it.
He helped do a documentary called Side by Side, which was about comparing digital filmmaking to traditional filmmaking. And it's out on Netflix. It's streaming. And he interviews several directors. I mean, he does James Cameron, David Fincher, David Lynch, Robert Rodriguez, Martin Scorsese, Steven Soderbergh, Christopher Nolan, and just asks their opinion on, okay, guys, you like digital. Tell me why and explain. Okay, you like traditional 35 millimeter shooting on film. Why? And then ask them like, well, isn't this better? Isn't that better? And the responses that he gets are interesting. And it was also a very good documentary just to learn about how film's made and why certain things are done certain ways.
Cool.
And I found it really enlightening. Anybody who likes to go see movies, or I think would find it interesting. And if you are in college and you're like wanting to go into film, you definitely should see this as part of your knowledge.
I've heard a lot about it, and I'm very interested in that field to begin with, so I definitely need to check that out. I think they ought to do a sequel though, Side by Side 2, and instead this time they actually pit in a death match type of place the 35 millimeter advocates versus the digital, and just let them fight it out. Whoever's left standing.
Have them on a
that's
panel.
the format we're left with. That's how it's going to be for there on out.
Well, and I'll say too, with the two movies that we reviewed, To the Wonder, no surprise there, shot on 35 millimeter, shot on film.
Okay.
Terrence Malick. Okay, Oblivion, shot with the red. So you've got two perfect examples right there. Now, I would say there was cool imagery in both.
Both of them.
But I guess I'll just let the cat out of the bag. To me, there's something about I feel like I can tell a warmth to images that are shot with film as opposed to digital. Now it's just...
And intern Nick is cheering behind you, so yes, he agrees. However, I've got a counter for it.
I admit it's totally subjective, and I could be completely wrong, because Oblivion is also very CGI heavy, so that's going to look really digital anyway. But I will say, to me, I just feel like I can tell a warmth. Plus, there's one thing that I will not back down on, which was mentioned in the film, the variety of types of light that film can shoot in as opposed to digital. Right now, it's like night and day. Digital, to me, can't handle darkness. Maybe eventually it can.
I will. Exactly, that's the phrase you got to use maybe one day, because it will. I mean, technology is advancing pretty darn quickly on this stuff. I agree. Right now, if you were to see film compared to digital video, you can still tell a difference. The warmth is still missing, and the lighting conditions. The range is not as good. However, compare it how it was 5 years ago. 5 years ago, the gap was so much wider between the two.
Sure.
It's getting narrower. We know we're going to a digital world. 35 millimeter is not left much time in this world. But luckily, I do feel like digital is making enough progression that even though I lament the loss of 35 millimeter, I'm encouraged in knowing that digital is progressing so quickly. I don't think it's that many years off where we can start saying, digital film is now exactly where 35 millimeter was quality wise. We're getting there. We're not there yet, but I do think we're getting there.
But I would lament the loss of 35 millimeter completely. Do I think it's bad that a lot of filmmakers are using digital? No, because they're able to do things, shoot in conditions they wouldn't be able to otherwise.
Yep.
But I just think it would be a shame if a format was lost just because that's a medium that people couldn't use anymore.
Well, it kind of easy to go back to the film we talked about at our last episode during the film festival review, where I talked about the Polaroid documentary. Same kind of idea. It's like,
sure,
yeah, it's really cool to have had Polaroid, and unfortunately, it's sad that it's gone. But, things have moved on. We've got Instagram, and I think some of these Instagram photos that people take now look just like the Polaroids used to. I mean, we are in a society that's going to be progressing.
Sure.
And as much as we can limit the fact that old vinyl LPs are not really with us that much anymore, old cassette tapes are out of date, we all, nostalgic-wise, tend to like those better. But I guarantee you ask my kids, if they were to listen to an LP and listen to a CD, they're going to go for the CD just because of the format.
Right.
They have no nostalgic
or just
feelings
MP3.
towards.
They don't even know what a CD is.
They have no nostalgic feelings towards cassette or LP. So I think we're wrestling with a little bit of that. You and I grew up in the 70s and 80s when film was film, and that's what we're just used to.
Well, I'll say too, last note on Side by Side, one of the things I appreciated about it is that it is even-handed. It
Okay,
gives you
good. I was
both
gonna ask that
sides, and it
question.
kind of just lays it out there. And it's like, here's what's happening. You make your decision about you.
That's
I don't
good.
feel like it rams one way or the other down your throat, because it has Nolan on there, who is very 35 millimeter.
Sure, yes.
And it has Soderbergh, who's like, screw that, man. I'm all digital,
Yeah.
And several other. So it was just really interesting to hear from people that I would consider to be experts what their opinion is.
Great. Well, my recommendation, completely different. I got to see Silver Linings Playbook again the other night. It's my second time viewing it. I still absolutely love that movie.
Really?
And, oh, yeah. You saw it. You didn't like it. Yeah. Man. Thank you. Intern Nick just said in the background, it's a great movie. I agree. Love it. I was also a huge fan of The Fighter a couple years ago, too. Love The Fighter. I Heart Huckabees. Great movie.
Now
That's-
I Heart Huckabees. That's
it's out
Chris
there,
Fry's kind
but
of movie.
it's a good movie.
Heck yeah.
Three Kings is a great movie.
like that
So
movie.
I'm a huge David O. Russell fan.
Got you.
So I wanted to recommend to people, in case you haven't seen it, it wasn't his first film. His first film was Spanking the Monkey, I believe.
Okay.
Second film, the one that was a little more mainstream, was Flirting with Disaster.
Okay.
Have you seen it?
Yes.
Yeah.
Once a long time ago.
Ben Stiller, Patricia Arquette. This is Ben Stiller before he became Night at the Museum Ben Stiller. This is like, he's still a comedian,
Parents, Ben
first and
Stiller. This
foremost. He had done the Ben Stiller show on MTV and kind of had a little bit of a cult following. So this is still good, pristine, vintage Ben Stiller here.
Got you.
Patricia Arquette, Téa Leoni. What I love about it, let me tell you
Alan
the
Alda's in
summary.
it too,
Yeah.
yeah.
Well, that's the thing. The summary of this film is basically Ben Stiller's character. He and his wife had their son 5 months ago, but he's still unable to name the child because he wants to know more about his biological parents. He doesn't know who his biological parents are. So he and his wife, and then their social worker, who's also pretty inept. I mean, she's not very good at what she does. They go off on a trip to California to meet his birth mother, who turns out it's not really his birth mother. She sends them on another little chase. They go tracking down, trying to find his birth parents so that they can actually give a name to their child. I just love the premise. I mean, it's fun anyway.
It's good.
You got some great performances by Ben Stiller, and Téa Leoni, I think, is really good there. But yes, 4 of the people that we meet that could be potential parent candidates. You've got Alan Alda and Lily Tomlin as a pair.
Awesome.
And then you've got Mary Tyler Moore and George Segal. So you got 4 real classic actors here, especially TV actors for the most part, going in and playing these really great roles. Alan Alda and Lily Tomlin especially, playing very hippie, just out there, psychedelic, experimenting with a lot of things. Really fun couple to watch. Overall, is a fun film. It is not a typical broad comedy. There's a lot more to it. There's a lot of little surprises. There's some drama thrown in that's a little unexpected at times. It's just a very well made, good movie. And I think for it being his first real kind of big star film, it was really good. So it was definitely a good predictor of the kind of films I was going to like later on in his career. So.
Got you.
Good. So that's it for our episode today, Chris. Not bad.
Yeah.
So basically recapping Oblivion, we both say, yeps, good. Check it out. To the Wonder, good to look at. Just prepare to be frustrated.
Yeah. If you didn't like Tree of Life, I would say don't bother.
No, if Tree of Life was not your cup of tea, you were
This
going to
won't be.
hate this film.
Yeah. Unless you like to look at Ben Affleck dressed up in Abercrombie and Fitch. Then, hey.
I'm sorry. I can't close the show yet. I got to ask this question.
Okay.
So, all right, back to the Wonder again.
Yes.
Is there something that Malick is trying to say with the fact that our 3 main characters that are in this love triangle all are beautiful, wearing stylish clothes,
Catalog
looking like they
clothes.
are in a catalog, and everybody else in the film in this little town in Texas is unattractive, down on their luck.
But they're
all that.
happy.
They're happy. Is there something to be said there? Do you think that's intentional? Or did he just let Ben Affleck pick out his own wardrobe?
I don't know.
Yeah.
That's an interesting thing.
And just food for thought. Maybe we'll follow up next episode. I think there's something to that.
Okay.
All right. So anyway, back to what we were doing. What else are we doing? We're closing the show.
I guess so.
Closing the show. That's it for Footcandle Films. Oblivion, To the Wonder, both available. To the Wonder is available on iTunes. You can go rent it tonight on your home TV. We had our recommendations, Flirting with Disaster, and also recommendation was Side by Side, the documentary. We talked about Michael Bay. We talked about Jim Jarmusch and Tom Hiddleston. We talked about Werner Herzog. Man, we had a pretty good show, I think.
We did.
All right. I encourage anybody who wants to go back and hear even more of this wondrous content, go back and check out our old archives shows. You can go to themesh.tv, look for Footcandle Films, and you can see all the other episodes we've ever done. You can also learn more about the Footcandle Film Society. That's the group that kind of got us started on this show to begin with. at footcandle.org. That's a film society Chris and I started several years ago here in Western North Carolina, bringing some of these films we're talking about right here to our backyard theater. And with that, I guess we'll wrap it up. We look forward to talking to you next time when we put out our next episode. Until then, have fun. Take care.
Special thanks to Carpal Tuller for the show theme music. For more about Carpal Tuller, visit www.carpaltuller.com. You've been listening to The Mesh, an online media network of shows and programs ranging from business to arts, sports to entertainment, music to community. All programs are available on the website as well as through iTunes and YouTube. Check us out online at themesh.tv. Discover other network shows and give us feedback on what you just heard.